Claire Dyer, and welcome to Dyer Consequences here on Unprecedented TV, a place where we will give a voice to the voiceless, and there will be no censorship and full freedom of speech. So most people will know that we are in a time when public trust in government, major institutions and corporations are eroding very, very fast. Stories of corruption, cover-ups and abuse of power are becoming harder and harder to ignore. So tonight, I'm turning my focus again to the Metropolitan Police. They are a little bit of a bugbear for me. They are one of the UK's most powerful public bodies. So in my show tonight, I am going to be speaking to Issy Vine, a former call handler who first spoke out around 18 months ago after reporting misconduct by a fellow colleague. But instead of getting support, she has been faced with isolation and was ultimately forced out. Still currently locked in a battle with the Met, determined to expose a culture of denial, retaliation and accountability lost. So I want to welcome to the show Issy.
Hi, hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. It's good to have you on. I had been following your story. And as I said, I have a little bit of a bugbear with the Met Police, well, all police in all areas. Yeah. I would say that they are essentially now a corporation that don't work for the people in the interests of the people. They are definitely used financially, personally and politically. And you know only too well what goes on. You have your own story and what you're going through right now. So yeah, just tell me a bit about it.
I sort of joined the Met in 2020 when COVID started, and a couple of years as a call handler, and then one day sat next to a colleague who said the most offensive things, anything but what you'd want to find in policing. Called a rape victim a slut, was racist, mocked Sarah Everard, the lady who was murdered and abducted and raped by Wayne Couzens, a serving Met police officer, and followed me after work. That was horrifying, and I had to obviously speak out and report him because it was horrendous, and that's what you're supposed to do, and that is what policing is. And it sort of just got worse. The more I sort of had an eye into misconduct and how they dealt with it, it was kind of like worse than the actual incident. I wasn't told like what was going to happen. I didn't hear for weeks what was going to happen. Then they were making me like go and work with him. All these failures. Anyway, 6 months down the line, he got dismissed for gross misconduct at Scotland Yard, and they said we don't have any place in the Met for anyone like this. Violence against women and girls needs to be taken seriously, and things like that. And I thought, great, like the Met are actually doing what they're telling people that they're doing. They're taking it seriously, that there's no space for discrimination and misogyny and racism, sexism. And I was really proud. And I got on with my life, moved into dispatching, and 4 months after he was dismissed, I get dragged out of a busy shift for a 5-minute meeting saying he'd appealed, he'd won, and he had been rehired and got all his pay back from the time he was dismissed in his annual leave. And I couldn't understand why. Met the director of our whole department, which is the biggest operational command department in the UK. And he said, I rehired him because it was too harsh to sack him. I still believe you, and it's still proven, your allegations.
Why do they believe it was too harsh?
He said, I guess he didn't really give a sort of reasoning into that specifically, but I mean, he went on to say, in his opinion, you can have any opinion you want in the Met, no matter how harmful. It's just when it turns into an action that they'll act. So I think in that director's mindset, it's like, okay, well, he hasn't physically like assaulted you or, done what Wayne Couzens has done. It's not that bad. That's the vibe that I got. And that, he said, you can have any opinion you want, no matter how harmful. It's just when it turns into an action. I
believe stalking you and following you home.
Well, see, that was the problematic thing. I mean, throughout the whole investigation, I was so confused. They didn't take the incident after work into consideration, because they said that's a one-off incident, so it, you know, it can't be harassment, etc. Even though collectively with the comments is very predatory.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So he was rehired, and you know, I couldn't understand why the director said, you know, violence against women and girls and the Casey report have too much influence in misconduct cases, and it makes, you know, criminals more harsher than they need to be, so that they look like they're doing something. So yeah, I was so concerned, and you know, with the rationale as to why he'd rehired him, and I escalated those concerns.
Mark Rowley also, in their Met for London programme, has said that he takes a zero tolerance approach to discrimination against Londoners, our people, anybody else we work with, and any officer or staff who is found to have discriminated will be dealt with robustly.
Yeah, I've called that out multiple times in the last couple of weeks. That's a lie, because my case is an example of that not happening. And I do say quite a lot that Mark Rowley should step down, because by lying, that's breaking a core policing principle and value, which is honesty and integrity. And to say that you have a zero tolerance against discrimination is a barefaced lie, because, you know, if you go through all the misconduct outcomes that include discrimination, a lot of them are written warnings or 18-month warnings, not even final warnings. So there is no zero tolerance. You actually tolerate it.
Oh, you seem to have frozen, Issy. I think there might be some...
I went on to make more concerns, and my reports were buried for months, and then... Oh, sorry, I'm back. But yeah, no, you know, I made... Oh, sorry, I'm back here. The Met haven't got me. Yeah, no, I made more reports, and I made more reports, and they were buried, and it just turned into such a circus, and my mental health went through the roof, and they were putting me in some dangerous situations, and so I had to leave and speak out, and it was fraudulent of me to stay in the police knowing that this is the type of people that they enable to work in policing. I couldn't do it.
Do you feel that because obviously that you'd made this complaint, that essentially they kind of forced you out, you had no choice but to actually leave rather than them sort of getting rid of you?
Yeah, I think so. I think they didn't like the fact that I was very vocal, you know, as in like, okay, I've stood up and I've spoken out and I've reported him. Then he's been rehired, and then I've sort of complained about the director's rationale for rehiring him. I think they definitely saw me as a bit like, oh, for God's sake, here she is, like, complaining again. But, you know, none of it was right. It was wrong and completely contradictory to anything that policing is. And I think they saw me as a nuisance, and I think they underestimated me in terms of, you know, when I would file a complaint or a concern, you know, I would chase it up if I didn't hear for months. I wouldn't just like get on with my life and forget about it. I think they found that very annoying, and I don't think they didn't give any care to my welfare. And I think they underestimated, you know, how badly they treated me, because there were points where I was going to work suicidal and like genuinely contemplating jumping off the roof of the work building.
Yeah, tell me more about a bit more about your actual job role within the Met.
Yeah, I started in the first 2 years. I was a call handler, so taking 909 calls and 101 calls. And the last couple of years, I was a dispatcher, so radios, speaking with the officers, prioritising incidents, you know, all of that, talking to the helicopters, etc. So yeah, that's what I was, and you know, it's all under an umbrella of a communications officer. So yeah, that's what I did.
So when they brought him back to work, was he still within the same department that you were in?
So when they told me he was coming back, they didn't tell me for 2 months where he was going to be posted. So I kept saying, am I going to be working with him again? They were like, oh, I don't know. We'll let you know, though. So I had no idea. I didn't go into work because they didn't tell me, and I didn't fancy being next to him. And then I had to end up pleading with them to put him in another centre. So they did, thank God. But they didn't tell me, they failed to tell me that was only for a year. So about 10 sort of months later, I thought I saw him in my building, and I got someone high up to check, and they said, oh, well, he's coming back in a couple of months anyway, so you should probably get used to possibly seeing him. And they'd never told me that I'd have to be continuing like to work with him after a year. They said it's whilst I was there that he wouldn't be there. So yeah.
So
and
really, they just swept this under the carpet, and you're still fighting this now, aren't you?
Yeah. Employment Tribunal, January 2027 is the 8-day final hearing. The Met know that they're going to lose. There's only so much I can say, but it's a very watertight case. I have like genuine like email trails of pure evidence you cannot fight, and the Met are being like purposefully deceiving, and the Met have lied to media. They have broken laws, and they know it, and that's why they're silent. But yeah, Employment Tribunal 2027, and I am seeing where I stand in other ways to take action against individuals within the police instead of the police as a entity, because there are individuals that need to be held accountable separately as well for what they've done.
Yeah, you actually named some of them, because obviously this went quite high up, didn't it? It didn't go to the assistant commissioner. I believe. And what happened with that? Because you've just been bounced backwards and forwards, haven't you?
The whole thing, just a big ping pong game. Yeah, completely.
They said that it's been passed on to somebody, that they were taking it and looking into it, and then you're waiting months on end, and then you've gone back to them again. Did you think they did that just to hope that you would just go away?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where they really underestimated me. I was told, oh, this is also concerning. A deputy assistant commissioner is going to look into this. So I waited and waited months and months, didn't hear anything. And then I just finally chased it myself after 4 or 5 months. And the deputy assistant commissioner was like, I don't know who you are. No one's passed me anything. So professional standards had lied, and buried my report. Just ping ponged, and that goes up to the deputy assistant commissioner, which is, 2 from the top.
We have the video. We have the video that you made. With the kind of the lowdown of exactly what has happened. If the studio can play that now.
Years old, I worked with the Met Police, and I left because it's rotten to the core. I'm just going to say it again, just to keep it out there. Christopher Timmins, Met CC call handler dispatcher, called a rape victim a slut, wished immigrants would fuck off back home, mocked Sarah Everard, and followed me after work. Jamie Johnson-Cottrell, Met CC director, now weirdly retired, rehired Chris and said it was too harsh, and the Vaughan and Casey report had too much influence on the original panel, and that you can have any opinion you want, no matter how harmful, and work in the Met. DAC Andy Valentine and Commander Jason Prinz. When I escalated my concerns over Jamie Johnson-Cottrell, didn't act on it for 5 months, and 10 months later said that there was nothing wrong with Jamie Johnson-Cottrell's harmful comments, and that they're sorry that they didn't do anything for 5 months. Assistant Commissioner Pippa Mills is Jamie Johnson-Cottrell's line manager, under investigation for bullying at the moment. Commissioner Mark Rowley. In your new Met for London programme, which you are the author of, you say you take a zero tolerance to discrimination within your force, and that any officers and staff that are discriminative will be dealt with robustly. My case is an example of that not happening. So therefore you are a liar, and therefore you have broken a core policing value, which is honesty and integrity. You all need to go.
Very to the point. We will need to go. I would actually agree with you on that, because it runs so deep, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's actually gone on for years, and there's just so many cases. I mean, there was a bit of a high-profile case not that long ago, wasn't there, with Katie? Did you hear about that one with Katie Price and Harvey? The WhatsApp group of the police officers mocking her son. Saying most people are aware of that just because of how high profile Katie Price is. But you think all of these, the ones that we do know about, what we don't know about. I mean, I believe that I actually did admit to gross misconduct, but only 2 were actually sacked. And it just goes on. I mean, you also, we talk about Sarah Everard, but there was David Carrick as well.
Yeah.
He was convicted. Yeah. Well, he was actually convicted of multiple rapes. But, even if you look at the statistics, as you said, not many of them, I mean, especially for sexual assault or even domestic abuse, all of those that are reported, it's a very, very few percent that even make it to trial. They're dropped by the CPS, or they're at the worst, they're just given a slap on the hand, and that's it. Nothing's changing. Nothing's changing. I mean, you know, you've been going through this for, it's what, 18 months, 20 months?
Well, so it started in April 23. So yeah, nearly 3 years, now. So it's a long time, and still no justice, really.
And to take him back on, and he still obviously had all his pay still given to him, which I'm guessing is at the expense of the taxpayer. But you know, importantly, how has this actually affected you psychologically, though?
Psychologically, I mean, I've been diagnosed with post-trauma. And some people say it's like, I don't know if anyone can like understand it if you haven't been through it, but I found it really psychologically traumatizing or torturing to have to put on a uniform every day, walk into this building that's oozing morals, in honesty, professionalism, compassion, knowing that everything I've just gone through and the person that I sat next to and everything horrible that he said and did is welcomed there. It was really, really traumatizing, and I felt really fraudulent. And I also say that it's, you know, it's really shattered my trust in any type of authority. I mean, not that I had much trust in anyone really much anyway, but I always thought, well, you know, the police are an official body, like they're an official institution. They if you need help, they're going to help you. They're going to be decent people. And it just shattered my whole confidence in any type of safety in authority, or you know, trust in any of it. And yeah, it's changed me forever. And it also shattered my, you know, a lot of people's work are their identity, and that's where I plan to spend the rest of my life, in a career in policing. And to have that literally just crumble because I just did the right thing, and did what I was told to do, to report wrongdoing, was incredibly difficult. And I still struggle today. It's not nice, you know, being 30 and being in a place where you don't know where you're supposed to go, even though I know I found my path now. But yeah, it was horrible. So, you know, and I also gained an autoimmune disease from the stress triggering. I'm on lifelong medication now. You know, I've never had any autoimmune or any health problems like that before. When I found out he was returning, I stopped having periods. I gained loads of weight. I wasn't able to regulate my temperature anymore, and I've got now an autoimmune disease. So I've gained a lot of baggage from this, emotionally, physically, and psychologically.
And it seems that when you try and do the right thing, you're actually punished for it. And you know, the police, it's one of those where you grow up believing that they are there to protect you and to serve you. And it's almost like having that illusion shattered, isn't it?
It is.
When, you know, when you realise actually that it is corrupt. And actually the people that are put in a position of power and authority are the ones that are quite often abusing it the most.
Yeah, and I think also what made it extra horrifying was that I had like a front row seat to corruption that went really high up. And it's not just like, oh, it's the odd officer or the staff member and it stopped there. It went all the way up. And you know, when you're exposed to that, there is just no hope when it's so deep in that in the institution, and it's very intimidating to take on your own. But to be honest, I signed up to be in policing, and I signed up to be honest, transparent, compassionate, safeguard people, and this is how I have to do it. And it is just a shame that I have to safeguard people from the police, but I didn't sign up to be loyal to an institution. I signed up to protect and help people. And that's probably where I was naive in joining the police. And I think that's where a lot of people do join the police with good intentions to help people. But the police are just the guardsmen for the government, and they are there to enforce law, not to protect life and limb like they tell you that you're doing. You're not at all.
I find for a lot of people that's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, it is.
To come to that realization that it does go that deep, and they are actually serving the government and no one else. We're going to come back after a break where we're going to have a quick look at Tim Scott's Uncancelled, one of the new regular shows here on Unprecedented TV. Hi and welcome back to Dyer Consequences, and we're talking to Issy today, who whistle blew on the Met and has now experienced just how difficult it is to actually do the right thing and actually get justice. And you were saying just before the break about it's quite intimidating. Do you feel though that since speaking out that there's an element where you're a bit targeted?
Yeah, definitely. I know for a fact via people from within the organisation that the Met are sending emails to their staff saying not to engage with me, and I have an organisation that helps whistleblowers and they've been told not to engage with that. I have my, may as well say it now because they've done it, but my mum works for the Met, and accounts have come, and no one would ever have known that because I've never told anyone. It's not recorded anywhere, social media wise or anything like that. And accounts have come onto my social media saying that my mum works there, like insidious things like that. I've had some experiences out in public with people. I feel it's crazy because I had retaliation when I was there and I was whistleblowing. You know, she can't take a joke, don't sit with her, she can't really have much fun, we can't really banter around her. And then I thought, okay, I've left now, so that it just ends. But now I'm kind of on the receiving end of like systemic retaliation, where senior leaders and people who are seeing me expose them and getting traction online are now trying to silence me. And that's where it's now turning really, really creepy.
I've heard people refer to this as Met-sanctioned harassment, but I have heard that anybody who whistleblows against any system, whether it's the NHS, ends up experiencing the same. It almost destroys their lives. They try and do the right thing, and in the process, they experience ill health, like you said, autoimmune conditions, and then they become subject to targeted attacks, or I would hazard in the aim to silence you. But I'm guessing that that's just only made you more determined.
Yeah. I always say that, like, whatever happens to me happens, and you know, whether I get arrested for something that's stupid or something happens to me, I've already come to terms with the fact that that will just happen for me, and I'm unfortunately just a little bit of collateral in order to get this bigger mission across, which is that people shouldn't be afraid to speak out, and these institutions are really corrupt. And yeah, it gives me more fire in my belly because it's so wrong. And I suppose the more I speak out, the more I'm kind of unearthing the problems in societies. Like I get a lot of officers send me horrendously, graphically threatening messages, private messages, and or like sometimes they're not even private about it. They'll comment on my public platform, and I just think, you know, oh my god, it's horrible and it's scary and it's terrifying. But then I'm like, oh my god, no, I'm glad I'm doing this, and I'm glad you've done that because you're showing who you are and you're showing everyone else that this is such a big problem what I'm talking about. So yeah, whatever happens. It's got to be done. I would rather. I will never stop this. Like how could I not continue with this when I've never been someone who can't. If something's wrong, it's wrong, and I'm going to say that until the end.
Yeah, you're going to fight to the death.
Yeah.
So because you now actually campaign, don't you? You have
Yep.
is it Speak Up for Now UK?
Speak Up Now UK, yeah. We help whistleblowers, whether they want to just anonymously send us their testimonies, or get help with, managing media assistance if they want to speak out, or legal assistance, counselling. We're also going to hopefully bring around financial grants, because a lot of people can't speak out because they don't want to leave, because then they'll lose their job and their money. But we'll want to provide financial support, so that people can do the right thing, speak out. And if they lose their job, they'll be okay. So we're going to do that. Yep, Isabel's Law is something separate that I'm campaigning on. I think there should be a police misconduct national register, for police staff and officers, not just officers, and not just gross misconduct, misconduct as well. And I think members of the public should have a statutory right that if an officer or a staff member is dealing with them, that they should be able to request the misconduct history of that officer or staff member, because I've now realised it's so violating to think that you're going to the police in your most vulnerable moment and you have no idea who is dealing with you. They could currently be under investigation for a sexual assault, or they could be currently under investigation for racism or something. And it's so violating that you don't know anything about these people, and you're supposed to just trust that they're decent people because they're police personnel. Yeah, and we've learned that you can't just trust titles anymore. It's not, they're all right, they're a doctor, or they're a lawyer, or they're a police officer. Nope, we can't. Like, how stupid of society to continue believing that titles mean that you're a decent person.
So tell me, what is Isabel's Law?
Yeah, so obviously to initiate a police misconduct register, to give members of the public the statutory right to access that. It has other elements into it. I feel like if an officer is under investigation, misconduct or gross misconduct, they shouldn't be allowed to resign. I do feel like a lot of officers sort of skedaddle off when they're, they get wind that they're under investigation and they resign. And it's always funny when you look at the Met's misconduct outcomes, it always says, well, if this officer was a serving police officer, we would have resigned, we would have dismissed him. You're just saying that because they left and you want to look good. I don't think you should be able to resign and run away. I think pensions should be forfeited if you've broken any of the core policing values, principles, or a crime. I don't think, when I was in policing, you could definitely tell which officers had passed their sort of 30-year mark, because that's when their sort of true personalities would come out, and the real horrific banter, because they wouldn't care because they've secured their pension. So, elements of that. But that's it in a gist.
And you're also going to have the ones that are coming up close to retiring, getting their pension, that will keep their mouth shut and turn a blind eye to any wrongdoing that they do see go on.
Exactly. It's
just not worth risking.
Yeah, it's just a hot mess. That's what I keep saying to everyone. It's a hot mess.
We just had the advertisement for a march. Tell me what that's about, because obviously it's about anti-corruption in public services. So what exactly is this?
Yeah. So that's a march I'm co-hosting with Intersectional Uprising. It's on the 5th of November, very symbolic. And it's really sort of stemmed from, obviously, my experience with corruption in policing, but also, I get so many whistleblowers from NHS, education, prison service, military, come to my organisation, and there are so many horrendous stories, and there are so many stories that are a million times worse than mine, and it's so evident that there's a problem in public institutions, and everyone is fed up. And this is, I guess, a symbolic act. People can't, the majority of people can't do much because we're not in power. So things like this, campaigning, marching, if that's something that someone can do to feel like they're trying to get justice or trying to make it better, then people want to do that. And so that's what we'll be doing on the 5th of March. And it will be...
Yeah, do you also have a petition as well on your website?
Yeah.
You want to demand, obviously, a statutory public inquiry, I believe, isn't it, to your case?
Yeah. That's another thing. So I know that my case is a is worthy of a public statutory inquiry, and it definitely is, since I've named and shamed these people and more things have come out. The Home Office originally said no, without even asking me for any of the details of my case, which is funny.
They didn't know anything about it, and they just straight point blank.
They just said no. Yeah, they just said no. And I've rewritten to them again, and I'm still yet to reply. So I hope that means they're considering it, because usually they reply quite quickly saying no. So
and Yvette Cooper, who was the Home Secretary at the time, did she have any involvement in this? Was she prepared to help?
I wrote to her so many times in the last year, since I left last December. I wrote to her probably about 4 or 5 times. I would just get boshed off to the police integrity unit of the Home Office, Home Office department, and they would just say, thanks, yeah, sorry about your experience, we are trying to make the police better, sorry. Absolutely useless. The Home Office actually give guidance to the Met Police in terms of their misconduct outcome hearings, and there's so many problematic statements, like you should focus on reputation rather than misconduct, and they just don't care. They don't care. And yeah, Yvette Cooper, not a fan.
I think also one of the other failings is that they have promised over and over again is better vetting. And
yeah,
that
which is another joke, because when I named and shamed the individuals involved in my case, it turned out that the director that rehired the predator that I originally reported was actually under investigation up until he joined the Met for racism and disability discrimination. And
I know I had a lady on who had been abused by a police officer, and she didn't actually report the abuse. It was really severe as well. He'd strangled her, kicked her. It was quite extensive. She didn't report it. The police actually came to her because he was already under investigation for multiple other offences. But what ultimately ended up happening was the CPS dropped it just before it went to trial, and then she ended up being up on a whole load of charges, which she ended up with a criminal record for. So I previously interviewed her, and that's when you realise it is everywhere. It's everywhere. I'm hearing more and more of more police officers that are already under investigation, that there's been misconduct, and it is nothing more than either covered up and just a slap on the wrist.
Just yesterday I was covering a case, PC Vicente, in the Met Police. He sent unsolicited pictures of his penis and attempted to continuously kiss a female colleague, and even after she said no, and pursued many young female officers without their consent. And he just got a warning, and it was deemed that the harm was low because it wasn't known in the public domain. It was in private WhatsApp groups that he was sending pictures of his penis, and that's a crime, cyber flashing, and that's how Wayne Couzens started. And he's currently serving in the police. We've got an officer who doesn't know what consent is and doesn't know what boundaries are, and it's sickening. There is no hope.
I know, and I wonder if you feel the same as me, that you kind of, the question you ask yourself is, why are the police allowing this? What is Mark Rowley doing? He's in charge of it. Just I'm actually a little bit sort of speechless and astonished, because here you have a man that makes all of these promises, about better vetting, that zero tolerance. He even said that he was banning the thin blue line badge on the officer's uniform, and yet none of this happens.
It's all performative. It's lip service. It's
how is it a crime for somebody else to, basically commit a crime, to inflict domestic abuse, sexual abuse, pornographic images, whatever it is, but yet it seems to be rife in the police.
I know, and I always say, and what's ridiculous is the government say they want to halve VAUG, violence against women and girls, in the next decade by half. You cannot do that if you do not address it in policing. Like, let's use our brains. Like, I don't know who the hell is in government, but I don't know if they pass primary school, because if you don't sort it out within the authority that's supposed to tackle it in society, it's never going to happen. Like, it's ridiculous. I just don't understand, like, how do you need qualifications to be in government? Because, or police, honestly, it's ridiculous though. Yeah, well, exactly. I would love to see his CV.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
I would say really the fundamental thing that you actually need probably to be in Parliament is human and to have some kind of compassion for humanity. Because if you don't have that, then I kind of think it doesn't matter how academic you are or how much you know about politics. It's pointless, really, isn't it? Because
it is.
you're not here working for the best interests of the people, and
No.
it's clear that the police force that it essentially is a public body, but isn't, because it's a corporation and it serves the bankers, those in government, are definitely not about the people. And it was the other thing I was going to ask you, because you talk about VOG, which is obviously violence against women and girls, and when they hired back the call handler in your particular case, they said that it was too harsh, and that the Vogue and Casey's report had too much influence on the original panel, which I believe you said was made up of 2 women and 1 male. What exactly did they mean by that? What do they mean had too much influence?
He said that the original panel were too swayed by the Vogue and the Casey report, and it made them be more harsher on people than they needed to be, apparently, because it was quite close after Sarah Everard and obviously the Casey review. The original panel were two senior female officers, a superintendent, I can't remember the level of the other one, and then a man from HR. Take it what you will. I know what I'm taking that as. I don't know if he would have said that if it was an all-male panel. I feel like he was saying, but I don't feel like he was saying that violence against women had too much of an impact on their decision making, that meant that they were making a wrong decision when they dismissed him. Violence against women and girls and the Casey report have to be 100% influential in your decisions, because that's what you're trying to tackle. And I'm sorry, that guy the director who rehired, who said these things, just was very dismissive of violence against women and girls, and it was clear in his comments.
It almost feels like they're just condoning all of this on every level. And the problem is now it's very hard for anybody to escape it, because it's all around us all the time.
Yeah, it is.
I know a police officer currently who has been suspended on full pay, that is also still working part-time and with women, and has been for 20 months still waiting for his court case, which is sexual assault against a 16. It's everywhere, and it's never going to change if they don't do something about it. But it seems, from what you're going through, they don't want to do anything about it. They just want to cover it up, and they want the people like you who are going to do the right thing and call it out, who go into faith and believe in the law, are going to be made to shut up and silenced.
Yeah, because ultimately, it would be too much work to sort out the Met, because there are too many people like this in the Met and in police forces nationwide. And like you said, it's a corporation, it's a business, and okay, you might have a dodgy officer or a staff member, but what the Met see it as, and I mean, I can talk for the Met, and I probably can talk for the other police forces, they look at staff and officers in a business mindset, not as a human. So, like, okay, if someone's reported to me that you've sexually assaulted another colleague or whatever, but you've got all these skills, and oh God, it would be such a nightmare replacing you, so we'll just keep you. Like, that's what it is. And it's all about stats and targets and business. And that's why I think they are allowed to keep these rotten people in, because they need the officers, I guess. But
well, I don't know if they do.
I was speaking to another officer who, he speaks on TikTok. He's still serving, and he calls out the Met. He's such an example of what an officer should be. And he was saying, if you were going to tackle the problems in the police, it would collapse, because the majority are probably like this. And I was saying, maybe that needs to happen. Maybe it has to get to a point where the majority of officers and staff are sacked because they don't align with the values and what we expect from policing. And maybe that's what has to happen for it to be rebuilt.
I said It's almost
Yeah.
like it's part of the job description. It's like
Yeah.
those tick boxes
Yeah.
to get you into the place. And you've also just started doing a podcast, I believe, isn't it? Called Misconduct Mondays?
Yeah, the Bad Apples, Misconduct Mondays.
What I found interesting about that is, so this is going to be every Monday.
Yeah.
You obviously have a lot of misconduct cases within the police that can keep you going every single Monday, and it's not even funny.
Yeah, like I was saying, because it's with Dom, this serving Met officer on TikTok, and we're never ever going to be short of anything to talk about because there's always misconduct cases. So yeah, I mean, I've said to him, we'll be doing that podcast till we die, because that will, unless the police are sorted out, it will be, consistently. But yeah, but
and they also seem quite blatant about it, because this is becoming more and more apparent to people. People are starting to sort of wise up to sort of seeing what is going on, and there's been so many public cases. I mean, you really would have thought that Sarah Everard would have been a lesson to the police, and yet it is blatant. They are so blatant about it.
There are problems with the Everard case, because I feel like, yes, it triggered something. It definitely triggered more focus on violence against women and girls, especially at the hands of police. But I do think it's also, there's been a negative from it, in the sense that I know definitely in my case, and in a lot of other misconduct cases, it's set a standard of what is really bad, so that anything that's not as bad as that is not really dealt with properly. So, for example, in my case, call handler calls a rape victim a slut. Okay, well, he didn't abduct and rape and murder someone, so is it that bad? So in that kind of way, it's but that's not the case.
And didn't someone I believe sort of kind of belittle it because they're not actually a police officer? And you point out that there's actually people who are not police officers that have a lot more power than a lot of these police officers.
Yeah, society need to research and use their brain more, because police officers are not the only ones with significant power. Like, call handlers have a significant amount of power. You can call into 999 and I can choose not to do anything with it and not tell anyone about it and just bury it. Dispatching can do the exact same. The people who are called controllers, who have the final say of if police even attend and take a report from you, or even acknowledge that you need police, they're police staff. They're not officers most of the time. They are police staff in blue shirts who don't go out and nick people. They are the ones that tell police who to go and nick. And people are actually contributing to, by belittling that, you are letting staff members get away with really bad things. People have nearly died because police staff have not made the right decisions out of bias. So people shouldn't just give the onus on officers, it's staff as well.
And also, as a call handler as well, it's quite mentally challenging, because some of the calls that you have to take, and even while this was going on and you were struggling with your mental health, as you said, they were still putting you on high alert calls?
They were still putting me on dispatching, even though the occupational health and the psychiatrist told me not to, that I should be on low risk roles and I should be working from home. Even because the Met is a business and they were short staffed, they trumped my welfare and they put me on dispatching, which is high risk, because you're constantly dealing with all types of incidents, immediate to non-immediate, coming in, filtering through, prioritizing. When officers are screaming because they're being attacked, they were calling into me, and I'm sitting there having a panic attack, and I'm triggered, and I'm angry, and I'm depressed, and I'm
so not only is that obviously detrimental to you, it's also putting other people's lives in risk.
Yeah,
the officers included, but also the public as well.
The public. Exactly, and that's when I handed in my notice, and I was like, this is dangerous now. Like and I know if anything had happened and it was at the hands of me because I was going through whatever. Yeah. I would be the first person. The Met would happily hand my picture to the Sun or to the Daily Mail, and I would be blasted all over the Met would not help me. So I left because it was dangerous, really dangerous. They didn't care about my welfare, and I used to sit there and think, oh my God, I bet there are so many officers going out there, and I know there are because they come forward to me now, who have attempted to kill themselves, and then their skipper said, no, you still have to come in. There's just no concern for staff and officer welfare, and it's not just because it's not just problematic because you're not looking after them. The public could be at risk because of that. If you have suicidal and mentally unwell officers and staff going out and dealing with people, you're not going to get great results. You're actually going to get dangerous results.
Yeah. So now, really, because of all of this, you've now sort of dedicated your life for obviously campaigning for obviously women and girls. Obviously, you're taking them to. Are you taking them to court? Because you've got a GoFundMe, haven't you?
Yeah, GoFundMe to help. I've represented myself the whole entire time, all the way up until the final hearing, and that's what I'm waiting for. But I need legal representation for the 8 days that I'm there. I know I'm going to win, and I know that because the Met are trying to prevent said court case. But they are definitely preying on the fact that I'm not familiar with legal jargon, etc. And in a hearing, I need representation just in case I'm surprised with, I don't know, anything they say. But my case is watertight. Many lawyers have seen it and said, there are laws broken here, breaches here, and the Met know it. But yeah, I have this GoFundMe to help. Anything extra goes to my organisation to help other whistleblowers.
That's the Speak Up Now.
UK. Yeah.
And you have the website as well, which is issyvine.com.
Yeah, you can find all my links on there.
Yeah, and obviously the petition as well. So I'm guessing you're like so many people that have that light bulb moment, or you experience something that's quite traumatic, or the corruption, and then go on to sort of dedicate your life campaigning and fighting for what is right, no matter how hard it gets.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to continue living in a society built on shaky foundations of corrupt people in power that just love a power trip and can just abuse people. I'm not going to be complicit in that. In the world, you have good people and bad people, but the majority are indifferent, and I am not. No way am I falling in that category. It would be I can't go through life just making sure that my own life's fine. I don't know if it sounds ridiculous, but I want to do something to help people. I guess maybe that's why. That is why I joined the police, to help people, and I guess this is my way.
I completely agree with you. The way I see it is that what is happening is it's actually a war between good and evil, and right now the balance is tipped and not in our favour, and has been for a very long time. And I feel that maybe called it crazy, but I feel that a lot of this is happening, and it's really being shown to us now. Just how deep the corruption goes, because it's actually in all the institutions, all of them, not just the Met. It's it's government. It goes right to the very top. And I think for some people, as you said, I know what side I want to be on. I know I'm going to fight to the end, because I can't turn a blind eye. What I've seen, I can't unsee it. I can't walk away. And like you, I know that I will continue to do against whether people say that you're never going to win, you're not getting anywhere, you're not going to win the war. I'm going to keep trying to win the small battles.
Yeah, that makes me want to do it more.
Yeah, at my doorstep. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to expose this. I'm going to fight against this. So I don't think it's crazy. I'm completely with you on that, and 100% support you, because there are so many people out there like you that have found their niche, or fallen into their niche, and are campaigning and fighting hard against the odds, and against being targeted and harassed, to try and do the right thing. So I completely admire you for that. And we have run out of time as well, I'm afraid, but I thank you so much for coming on. And I would urge anyone to sort of, sign your petition, because, a lot of people say petitioning doesn't work, it is the government, but what you've got to do is,
exactly.
You have the march on the 5th of March. Obviously, you're on TikTok under your name, and you have the website under your name, Issy Vines. And I think people should get behind you.
Thank you. I hope so. And even if just every podcast or chat I do, at least, if there's an officer watching it, or a doctor or something, and they've seen something, I hope I can give them a little bit of courage to just try and and figure out how to speak out, because
there's some midwives and nurses that are currently also going through what you're going through.
I know those.
Yeah,
they're amazing. Victoria and her crew.
So you're definitely not alone. So sorry, the march is on the 5th of November. I think I might have said that wrong. Because it's March.
I always say for the March.
5th of November is the march against corruption in our public and emergency services, which is rife and runs deep. So thank you very much, Issy, for coming on today. It's been great. You're welcome anytime. Wow. So what we've heard tonight is not just obviously Issy's personal painful experience. It's a glimpse into a system where corruption, silence and self-protection too often take priority over truth, accountability and justice. When those speak out, are punished and face retaliation and misconduct is buried, it raises really serious questions. When are the Metropolitan Police actually going to do what is right, rather than continue to keep covering up wrongdoing within their own ranks? This isn't just about one force, it's about a pattern that we are continually seeing across public bodies, government institutions and corporations, where corruption is allowed to thrive behind closed doors while those who challenge it are pushed out. Real accountability means facing uncomfortable truths, not hiding them, and until leadership within the Met and other powerful institutions, including the government, stop protecting reputations over people, nothing will change. Issy's fight is a reminder that speaking out is actually an act of bravery, and that if we ignore stories like hers, we allow corruption to go unchecked. Silence may serve the powerful and protect them, but truth serves the public, and truth should always be at the forefront. I'm Claire Dyer. This is Dyer Consequences, and you're watching Unprecedented TV. Please tune in again. Thank you.